afternoon, podcast listeners. This is Ed Franklin with the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. This is the fourth time I've started this podcast, but you're going to get what you get on this one. And I don't know why it was just a little bit choppy. Did not like where it was going. So anyway, you can always contact me at edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com if you'd like to be a guest, or you know somebody would be a good guest. You can contact me through email at edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com, or you can contact me via LinkedIn or Facebook or however else you can call me, for God's sakes, if you just want to talk to me about maybe being a guest or whatever. We are mere days away from Thanksgiving 2023, and like every holiday season, I am pumped. I love the holidays. I always have. I had great experiences when I was a child, and so I'm super excited about it. It's not going to be as big as it normally is this year, people-wise, but that's okay. It's still going to be a great time, and we have some kids here, and we'll have fun and play board games and do all those fun things. So when I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were telling me that during their holidays, when they were kids, their parents' bad relationship would escalate, and it always seemed like there were, a lot of animosity and things going on, and I just never had that when I was a kid. Now, my parents did not have a perfect marriage by any means. In fact, probably listed as a horrible marriage, but none of that ever happened when I was a kid. And if it did, I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that I was out of school. I was having fun. I had just done a bunch of artwork for Thanksgiving. Of course, back then we only had Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday off. We didn't have the whole week off like most of the kids these days. We have our grandkids downstairs right now because they have the week off. So I'm just super excited. And I hope that if you're traveling, because they say it's going to be heavily traveled this year, that you get there safe and you come home safe and you have a great time, just like I'm anticipating that we're going to have a great time. It's one of those hot days today, not hot, but it's pretty warm and it's windy. And somebody commented on Facebook earlier today that they hated the wind. And this is my favorite weather. The Santa Anas are my favorite, except for the fire, danger that they present. I love the wind. It's not like my hair is going to blow all over the place. So I'm excited. I'm going to get outside later today when it cools off, just to be able to feel that wind. So again, happy Thanksgiving to you. I'll do another podcast before Christmas, but I just wanted to kind of tell you a few things about family today and some of the traditions we used to have when I was a kid, and things that we did when my kids were younger than when they were all at home. And man, we used to have, I know when I was a kid, my dad was always borrowing chairs and tables for Christmas or for Thanksgiving, because so many people would be over. There'd be family and friends and, relatives and long relatives we hadn't seen in a long time and everything. And it was just so much fun. We'd be out in the street playing football or baseball or whatever. We were always outside playing around. And I truly loved the holidays. And if you talk to some of my coworkers in the past, they'd tell you that I used to play Christmas music about July or August, and it used to drive them crazy. But I just love the holidays because everybody seems to be a little bit more mellow and happy, hopefully. And even if you're have some despair right now, the holidays always are hopeful. They kind of present hope. And if you're with friends and family, then it just makes everything better. So happy Thanksgiving to you. When I was, I'm going to get back to the Thanksgiving thing in a minute. When I was about, 3 or 4 years old, we lived in Ocean Beach behind my aunt, and it was my mom's aunt, really. So it was what is call it my great aunt. And she owned a property with not a granny flat, but just a house in the back. And we lived there with her. And when we were at her house and after we moved out, we used to go to her house quite a bit. So my grandmother and my Aunt Mary were sisters, and they had 3 brothers, and they were very musical. So they were playing, older people remember the accordion, piano, guitar. I mean, they played all these different instruments. And we used to go to her house, and these guys would play instruments and have fun and sing, and they'd have food, and they probably had alcohol, and they would play pinochle and everything. And I just have really fond memories of doing that, going over to their house with all these relatives, and I'd end up falling asleep on the floor or something. And I'd end up, I'd wake up the next day and I'd be at home. But my mom, this aunt of my mother's helped her out to buy her first house, buy my mom and dad's first house. And I don't know how they helped her, but if it wasn't for them, I know that they wouldn't ever got that house in East San Diego that we lived in. And the tradition continued. We'd go to their house and sing and do all these things, and they would come over. And my Aunt Mary had a daughter named Bonnie, and Bonnie was my mom's cousin, obviously. They had adopted my Aunt Mary had adopted her and her brother, and or I don't know if it was her brother, but this year my Aunt Bonnie contacted me via Facebook, which is funny because she's in her 80s, but she had hit me up, and I had seen her over the last 20 years, maybe just a handful of times. I'd seen her at church. Her and her husband, her late husband, were they would sing in the choir at the Catholic Church, and some of the times I'd go to that church, I would bump into her and we'd chat for a minute. And I know that she, stayed in touch with my mom up until my mom's passing in 1997, and she's unfortunately has lost her daughter and her son. Her son just last year, and he was a young man, but she contacted me and we went down to visit her and her daughter-in-law and her grandson. And it was just this great experience because I got to get caught up on some of the history of our family that I didn't know. And we talked and we had dinner and we promised we'd get back together again, which she just contacted me today, and we're going to get together next month. And it was really nice to see her and talk about the old family because I really don't have anybody in the area that can do that. And I am not close to my siblings, so we never talk about any of that. So there was really nobody around from my childhood that I could talk to, but she reimmersed, and it was just fantastic. So my Aunt Mary and my grandmother had I think I said this, there was 5 siblings, and they used to play music in vaudeville. If for you young people, look up vaudeville and you'll see what it is. But they actually had an act, and there's a book somewhere, and I think I have it at the house here, about like their history and their experiences in vaudeville, which would be super interesting because this had to be in the 30s and 40s, or even maybe a little, not probably the 30s and 40s. So just really cool that she contacted me, reached out to me, and we got to meet her family. And I think that we're going to see them a lot more often, and they'll get to see our large family grow up. And yeah, it was just really cool. So she was one of those people. I was actually her ring bearer for her and her husband when I was 8 years old, and I had posted pictures of that on Facebook. And I was so cute. I don't know what happened, but I was really a cute kid. So I was actually a ring bearer in a few weddings because I maybe just had that look. But anyway, it was awesome seeing her, and this is the kind of things that holidays build, is these family memories. And I just remember as a kid growing up, my dad would get up really early and put the turkey in, and then my mom would be cooking all day, and they'd make pies during the week. And then we just had all this anticipation up till Thanksgiving, and it was just a great day and a great weekend. Of course, we were off for a couple days, and that was awesome. And then Christmas was right around the corner. And when I was young, my mom worked at Kmart, and what Kmart would do when they used to have normal hours for stores, like 9 to 6 on Sundays, they would close early. It wasn't early, it was their standard hours, but compared to now, it was early. They would open the store to employees and their families, and you could go in and they'd reduce all the prices of everything. And they'd have raffles and food and cookies and all that stuff. And we could shop, and we'd always win something. I don't know why, we'd always end up winning something. And it was just a really cool memory to go into Kmart and have a couple bucks in my pocket that my dad either gave me or whatever, and we could go shopping for our siblings and our parents and stuff. It was just really cool. But as I grew up and started having kids, and we'd start switching, it seemed like the parties started coming to my house, where we would have a Thanksgiving, then we'd have a Christmas Eve party that my mom started a long time ago. And she started that Christmas Eve party because she felt like us kids, that our kids should, our children, her grandkids, should wake up in their own bed. So she'd have a Christmas Eve party so she could see all of her kids. And it was awesome. And I ended up taking it over when my first 3 kids were little. And it was just great. And we'd have 30, 40 people in the house on Christmas Eve. And my cousins, nieces and nephews would come, and they'd bring their kids, and then neighbors would be there, and we'd just drinking and just having a great time and eating fun food. And of course, then Christmas Day, we'd wake up and Santa Claus had come. So it was just really awesome. And I know I've talked to a couple people this month, probably in the last 30 days, like 3 or 4 people that are having a hard time. They're either having relationship problems or whatever they're having a hard time with. And I hope the holidays bring those people some cheer and kind of lift up their spirits, because I try to, but the best I can offer is to sit in the mud with those people and just kind of listen to them talk and encourage them that they can get over this. I've talked about value a million times on the podcast. I've talked about getting over limitations. I've talked about trauma. I've talked about all these things, and the holidays are a time when I'm hoping that people will have some hope and they can see light at the end of the tunnel, and just kind of have a good time. Maybe forget about their worries, their problems for a couple hours, hopefully, or a couple days. And that's kind of the way I look at the holidays. Now, we used to, when I was a kid and when I was an adult, we used to decorate the house the weekend after Thanksgiving. And you know what? 2 weeks ago, we said, screw it. I got the Christmas decorations out. We had our tree up 2 weeks ago. We're putting stockings up. 37 stockings now we have for kids and grandkids and their spouses and significant others or whatever. We have this gigantic long string of stockings, and it just looks awesome in the house. And I felt like, we're not having a horrible year, but there's definitely some struggles out there in the economy and things like that. So we thought some good karma would be good, and just putting those things that makes you feel better, right? I get up at 4 a.m. to go to the gym. I see the tree and all those other things. So we just felt like it was a good year to add the Christmas decorations early. And I don't know if you can hear the dogs barking, but somebody apparently is here. But anyway, I hope that you all, and this is going to be a short podcast. In fact, I'm almost done, just because all I wanted to do today is just wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I'll do another podcast before Christmas because I want to talk about that. But the last thing I'll talk about, and I bring this up often, and I hear it often from business people or motivational speakers, and it's about being grateful. It's about being thankful for the things you have in your life. And there's so many things I can't even make a list of how many great things are in my life. Are there a couple bad things? Yeah, I mean, of course there is. There's a couple things that I'd like to change, and I'm working on changing those. But for the most part, I'm sitting here doing a podcast. I'm very healthy. I feel very good right now. We're going to eat tonight. We have a roof over our heads. It was funny, Friday night, I was sitting there at the bar, not at a bar, at our bar, in the kitchen where I normally sit. And I heard something, and I looked outside. It's pouring rain. Didn't even know it was supposed to rain. But you know what? I didn't get wet because we have a roof over our head, and I appreciated that. And I think that we need these small things in life that we should be grateful for. Living in the US, that we're free and we can do what we want, and we have cell phones and computers, and I'm able to do this podcast and build a legacy for my grandkids to listen to these forever. So I think it's just exciting that there's always something to be grateful for. And I think we really need to pay attention to that and do our best to be grateful for the things that are around us. If you believe in God or a higher power, I think that this is a good time to reflect on some of those things. There was a homily this weekend that I'm going to bring up in my next podcast that I felt like was very directed at me. Of course, there's 800 people in the church, or however many people are there. But there's those days when you hear a homily like this, and it just felt like he was just talking to me. And it was very good homily, and I was pumped when I got home after hearing that. And man, I just, there's a lot of good things coming, and I think that you have to believe that, but you also have to take action on that. It's up to you whether those things are going to come. Life isn't easy, man. It's not meant for the weak, but I know all of you are out there hustling and doing what you got to do. So listen, I wish you the most magnificent Thanksgiving ever. I hope for miracles in your life. I hope for some of you that aren't maybe feeling too great, I hope you feel better. I'm praying for all of my friends and people I don't know, that their life's going to turn around and things are going to be better. I have some friends that are ill right now, and I hope that they are feeling better and they just get some time to relax this week and be with family and friends. And because that's what we're going to try to do. And then, like I said, in anticipation of Christmas, I'm so excited. We've been listening to Christmas music lately. I could listen to it all year, which I do sometimes, and some of you know that. But it's funny when I do a podcast, oftentimes I'll have a person in mind that I had been talking to recently that might be struggling or something, and I'm kind of trying to direct the podcast at that person. And I have a few people in mind during this podcast, and I hope that those people, like I said, are surrounded by family and friends this week, and they can have a great time. And although we're not going to have as big of showing at Thanksgiving, it's not because of lack of effort. It's because some of my kids are out of town. Some of them are doing some other things, some fun things with their children, and I dig that. I love that they're making their own traditions. And so, listen, it's going to be a fun Thanksgiving. I'm excited. We're going to get some more board games and try to interact with the kids as much as we can. Unless we get Monopoly, then I'm not sure that's going to work, but we might not get that game. But anyway, I wish you the happiest of Thanksgivings. Like I said earlier in the podcast, if you're traveling, it's going to be heavy out there. They say statistically, there's going to be a lot of people on the road, a lot of people in airports. Just be so careful, be conscious of what's going on around you. Get there safe, get back safe, and just have the most fabulous Thanksgiving you can have. Don't eat too much, but if you do, get back in the gym on Friday. And if you do Black Friday shopping, good luck to you. I don't do that anymore. So anyway, listen, thank you for listening. One thing I'm really grateful for is you all that listen on a regular basis, and share this podcast if you can. I'd appreciate it. Everybody needs to hear positive things, and I hope I'm as positive as I can be. Although I'll tell you a quick story. The last podcast I did last week, that somebody contacted me on LinkedIn and said I was glad I wasn't standing on a bridge because I would have jumped off. And then the podcast picked up. Apparently, when I was doing the podcast, he felt like I was kind of feel like I was talking like I was down, like I was a little depressed. Most of you that know me know when I use my hands a lot and I'm a little bit hyper in that. But I know when I sit down in this, and I've told you before, when I sit down in this podcast, sometimes it does bring my mood down a little bit. So I'm going to try to configure a way I can stand up to do this podcast, because I think I'd be a little bit more energetic. So I'm working on that. The next podcast I do, I'll be standing up. So if you get a chance to look at that, it'll be out next week, and see if my energy's up a little higher. So again, happy Thanksgiving. Have a great week. Be careful. See some family and friends, and make sure you appreciate them. You can always contact me at edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com, or hit me up on social media. I love all you people. I really do. You all do something that you can teach me something. Every one of you can teach me something that I don't know. And that's one of the reasons I love everybody. So have a great time, and I will see you next week.